everyone, hope you're all doing well. Welcome to today's video. Today's video is all about this sequin dress. This is my first official make for hashtag bhmpatterndesigners challenge. I know you're probably thinking, but you already showed us 3 makes. I did, but those were samples for the fabrics that Natita has available on her website. This is my first official make that isn't a sample. This was my first official lockdown indoor photo shoot. This is also my first time making this pattern and my first time trying out this pattern designer. So let's get into it. So first of all, I want to talk about the fabric because that is the obvious star of the show. This is a reversible sequin. It is gold on one side and the other side has snake print. I don't know how this is even possible because I know you can't tell on camera, but up close the snake print sequins actually follow a pattern. So if I were to run my hands across the fabric to flip all of the gold sequins over, the snake print actually follows a pattern. I think what I will do is show some close-ups of the fabric because that blew my mind. Absolutely gorgeous sequin fabric. I've never seen any reversible sequins like this. I know they usually follow like a rainbow pattern or they just have like one side red, one side black, but I've never seen them actually follow a specific print. I hope somebody did not have to sit down and hand stitch on all these snake print sequins to follow that pattern. I don't know, it just really blows my mind. So this is a stretch sequin fabric, which means I was able to use a knit pattern for this project. It does have a good amount of stretch. The backing is white and there was some selvage that was like a snake print spandex, but when I unpicked some of the sequins, that snake print spandex did not continue over into the backing, so I was a little bit confused. Anyway, yes, the backing is white. This fabric is available on minerva.com. I will have the fabric linked down below and the name and everything. Honestly, if you have been on the lookout for sequin fabric, this is a beautiful one to get. I've definitely never seen any fabric like this in stores, and I also haven't seen it in ready-to-wear clothing either. Really unique fabric. That being said, working with sequins can be a little bit of a pain, I must admit. And I feel like every time I do a sequin project, I then need a break from sequins for a little bit before I tackle my next one. First of all, there's a mess that you have to clean up. I'm still finding sequins in the bed. I'm still finding sequins even in the kitchen. And I already swept the house, so I don't know where these sequins are coming out from. Another thing is stitching sequin seams can be a little bit interesting. You want to choose a pattern that stays away from too many dots or pleats or intricate details that require you to fold or manipulate the fabric. I would recommend a really simple silhouette with not too many seams at all. This is a dolman sleeve dress, so the sleeve is built in. You stitch on top of the sleeves. You have the waist seam that joins the bodice to the skirt, and then you have this sash, which I will get into later on in this video. First, I wanted to share how I cut my sequins to avoid sequins flying all over the place. Also, if you don't wear glasses, you may want to wear goggles when you're cutting sequins because they can tend to explode let's use the word explode. But for me, I found that cutting the sequins from the wrong side eliminated all of those issues. And I do have a clip from when I was cutting this pattern. I think I was cutting the sash piece and I had my husband do a little bit recording so that you could see how I cut it with a sharp rotary cutter blade, and it just glides through the sequins like nothing. And of course, once you're finished constructing this dress, you're gonna need to change that blade because it's not gonna work the same anymore. So sacrifice a blade to cut out your sequin project. I found that the rotary cutter cuts way better than scissors. I don't think I'll ever use scissors to cut sequin fabric again. So I'm stopping midway cutting just to show you how I cut my sequin fabric. This is the sash piece and there's supposed to be a center back seam. I mean, I have mine flipped over, so let me flip it the correct way. Right, so there is a center back seam and the center back seam is 1/2 inch. So as you can see, my sequins start being sewn on here, and this is all just like a spandex fabric. So what I'm going to do is line this up so that when I trim, I will have 1/2 inch of the spandex fabric without the sequins, so that I don't have to unpick sequins from this particular seam. So the next thing is that if you have a really thick sequin fabric, you may want to pick all of those sequins out of the seam allowances. No, this is not the thickest sequin fabric. This is actually a nice thin one that's easy to work with. However, I did attempt to pick the sequins from the seam allowances. I started on the sash piece since that is just a straight piece, and it didn't go so well. I don't know how you people sit down and unpick sequins from seam allowances. I don't know if it's just this fabric, but these sequins were sewn on really well. And I mean, that is a plus, because you don't want to be walking on the road and you have sequins falling off the fabric, or you end up with like a patch that has no sequins. That's not cute. So I appreciate the fact that they were sewn on quite well. I want to say it took me an hour to unpick 2 inches of seam allowance on that sash. That being said, I dedicated another hour to unpick another 2 inches from the coordinating sash piece, because you place the sash pieces right sides together before you stitch them, and you have to leave an opening. So what I did was use that 2 inches as the opening. That way when I turn the sash inside out and I have to slip stitch, I would just be slip stitching those 2 empty seam allowances together that have no sequins. So that worked out well. However, this would actually take me a week to unpick sequins from all of these seam allowances. Therefore, I just had to decide I'm gonna sew straight through these sequins, which is the way I usually do it. But I was trying to be an adult this time. I was trying to be all grown up. I still ended up having to take that shortcut where I just sew through the sequins. I just could not get that unpicking done. Yes, I used the threads on the back. I snipped the threads on the back and tried to pull them through. Y'all, I just did not have the patience or the time to spare, really. That being said, as long as you make sure you have all your reversible sequins going in the same direction. So I flipped all of mine, made sure everything was on the snake print side, so it would lay nice and flat. That way the machine glided over it quite easily and I had no issues. I used a size 14 needle. So now on to the pattern I used to make this dress. Now, if you watch my plans video, you would know that I had to scrap like 4 or 5 patterns in a row because nothing was working out. All of them had a different reason. It wasn't anything to do with constructing any of the patterns, because I didn't even get to that point. It was more cases of me not being able to download patterns, not being able to print patterns, all that good stuff. All that bad stuff, rather. I reached out to my girl from Sewtra patterns. Her name is on the list of designers that I could use for the challenge. Now, she actually has some free patterns on her website, and her style is kind of like vintage inspired. So I was actually going to make up the Betty dress. I'll have a picture on the screen somewhere showing you what that dress looks like. I actually reached out to her to ask a question about the Betty dress, and she was like, hey, I actually have 2 new patterns coming out soon. Would you like to try them instead? Of course, I jumped on that right away. So I actually had no plans to make this pattern until I reached out to her. I had no plans to use this particular fabric during this challenge. It just all came together in the end. So the designer for Sewtra is actually from the Bahamas, and like I said, she has some free patterns on her blog. Also, I think she used to have an Etsy shop under the name Sewtra Socialite Patterns, but now she's preparing to launch these 2 new pattern collections. Notice I did not say patterns, I said pattern collections. And what I love is that, so she has a knit pattern collection and then one for wovens. The knit one is obviously the one I used, and the way she has designed these pattern collections is that you can mix and match tops and bottoms. And then for the woven, it's a sheath dress, and you have different sleeve options, different length options, different color options. So you're getting a lot of variations in that one pattern, which means that you can use that one pattern to make a ton of different looks, and nobody would even know that it came from the same pattern. So these pattern collections are not launched just yet, but they are on the way. She assured me that she's working on the instructions and she's gonna have them up in the first quarter of this year. So I figured I would go ahead and bring it to you guys to get you excited for what is to come. So the knit pattern collection had 4 bodice options, I believe. So there's the fitted off shoulder, which is the one I made. Then there is a draped off shoulder. Then there is a tank. And then there is another dolman sleeve that is like a short, more open dolman sleeve with a notched neckline. Then for bottoms, we have a fitted skirt, which is the one I made. And you have, I think you have mid-thigh, knee, midi, and maxi. My length is between the knee and the midi. I shortened the midi length by 2 inches. Then there are also pants. There are wide leg pants, there are fitted pants, and these come in different lengths as well. So you have the long, the capris, and then you have shorts, which means that you could make a jumpsuit, you can make a romper. You can also make the skirt pieces on their own. There is a waistband included. I'm sure you can make the tops on their own if you wanted to as well. I don't know what the price will be yet for these patterns. In the words of the designer, it's gonna be a lot of bang for your buck. So you're gonna get all these options, and the aim is to keep the price point affordable. Now the free patterns on her website, I think those went from small to 3X, but with this new pattern block, it's gonna go from small to 5X. I made size extra large according to the size chart. It worked perfectly. The only changes I had to make was length, and then I also slimmed the sleeves, which was a bad idea. I should have left them the way they were. And I will show you why. So I shortened the front bodice by 2 inches, I believe. And then I shortened the back as well, and then I also had to do a sway back on the back. Now these patterns are drafted for somebody who's 5'7", I'm only 5'4", so these changes are expected. The skirt piece, like I said, I shortened the midi length 2 inches, but I didn't make any adjustments except for I took in the waist of the entire dress, an inch on each side, and that is actually because of the weight of the sequins. So because of the weight of the sequins, it was kind of pulling the bodice down a little bit, so I needed the waist to be a little bit more fitted so that it would stay up where it's supposed to on my natural waist. So the sleeves on this particular one were long sleeve. There also is a short sleeve version. I wanted 3/4 length sleeves, so I actually made a mock-up out of some regular old rayon jersey scraps, and then I just marked where I wanted my sleeves to hit. Now the mistake I made is that jersey fabric had 4-way stretch, and this sequin fabric only has 2-way stretch. And the way that you cut the pattern, it stretches going this way, horizontal. So as you could see, the sleeve here has no stretch. I should not have taken in the sleeve because the sleeves are now really tight on my arms, and I had already trimmed my seam allowances and everything. so I can't let that out. Luckily, no one will know, but it is a little bit more snug than I would like. Now with this off shoulder design, what I like is that it does not go too low on the shoulders. It kind of stays more like right at your shoulder cap, and even with the weight of the fabric, it does not slide down. And I guess that is also because I used a straight stitch around the top. Now the pattern comes with a binding that you would use, but because of the sequin fabric, I need to line the dress. So I actually have some jersey fabric inside. I used black because that is what I had. However, please don't use black if you were going to use this fabric, because in the event this does slide down, especially in the back, you're going to see that black. What I did as well to make sure that that does not happen is that I tacked the lining. I did a little stitch in the ditch right on the beginning of the sleeve, and that keeps the lining in place. Now on the sleeves, I left the lining pretty much hanging free. I just have it hemmed separately because I wanted to leave my sequins raw. I don't know about you, but I have absolutely no intentions of trying to hem sequin fabric. I will just always leave it raw. I think it looks fine that way. I think it looks better that way because it can get really, really chunky. The only way I think it should be hemming sequin fabric is if you unpick that hem allowance. And your girl was not about to do that, so I just left it raw. So what I did just with the neckline, just to make sure that the sleeves don't come through, the black lining doesn't come through, I just tacked it to the seam allowance again. And then for the skirt lining, I know you're not going to be able to see. Okay, let's see if I can show you. This isn't going well. This is what happens when a mannequin doesn't have legs or hips. It's really hard to pull this up. Basically, I'm just trying to show you that on the hair is lined with the black, and I left the lining hanging free in this skirt, completely free. I didn't bother to tack it at the seam allowances or anything, because what I did was I actually hemmed it 2 inches, so there's no chance of it coming out the bottom. With the sleeves, I hemmed the sleeves 1 inch because I wanted it to be still close to the edge. That way I don't feel the sequins scratching my arm too much. But with the skirt, because around the knee area comes out just a little bit, I didn't feel the need to extend the lining all the way down to the hem. Hope you guys understand what I'm saying. Hope that was clear. So the main issue that I had with this sequin fabric is the sash. Sewing up the sash was fine, absolutely no problem, but I don't know if you can tell, this is pretty much a cylinder as opposed to a flat sash. I have no idea how to get this sash to lay flat. It's really bothering me. I actually pressed this with a pressing cloth. It helped, and then once the sequins cooled down, it popped right back up. It's like a cylinder instead of a sash. I mean, I love how it looks around the waist. It's just these pieces that are hanging that are really, really poofy, and I have no idea how to get this to lay flat without top stitching, because I really do not want to top stitch through these sequins. I just think it would look better not top stitched. So any ideas on how to fix this, please let me know. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up my review of this pattern and this fabric. This is my first official lockdown make, and I took my photos inside in the nighttime, created a whole Valentine's scene. I hope you guys appreciate it. A lot of work went into this dress and a lot of work went into this shoot. I love how the pictures came out. So let's have a look at my photos. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give me a massive thumbs up. I really appreciate you joining me today. I can't wait to read your comments, because I know a lot of you are gonna have things to say about the sequin dress. Sequins always seem to do well in the sewing community. I guess there's just something about the razzle dazzle that is attractive. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Make sure you follow Sewtra on Instagram. I'll have her Instagram down below so that you can be alerted when these patterns are launched. As usual, I will have all the information about hashtag bhmpatterndesigners down below, as well as the links for the host and our ambassadors, all of their social media pages. Everything is down below in the description box. You still have lots of time to enter the challenge. It doesn't end until February 28th, and I still have a lot more inspiration to bring to you guys. But for today, that is it, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Bye.